Welcome back. Check the Pulse podcast, episode 2, I think. Welcome back. Thank you everyone for subscribing, following. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. Before I do, you guys know the vibe. If you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, follow. Do what you got to do to show some love and support.
Awesome. Hey everyone, it's Sam. So I'm the owner of Infinite Warrior Fitness and Performance. So basically what we do here is a group fitness class setting where we focus on strength training, mobility, and pretty much everything's just functional training so that you can develop a lifestyle that's good for you.
Amazing. So let's take it back a little bit, because even being an athlete, like I love the whole fitness side of things.
Yeah.
I see what you do here. Your community is very strong. It's very prominent, and I think everyone really loves you. Obviously, that's why they're coming. So what made you get into this? Like, where did you start? Kind of what was your journey into, ending up in this amazing space?
Okay, so basically, I came out of school, I took kinesiology at York. So I came from a degree perspective, but then went into do kinesiologist. So basically from there, I was working in a rehab clinic alongside a physiotherapist, and I was helping treat the clients. But what I noticed that a lot of the clients, they were having constant pain, chronic pain, and it wasn't getting better. So I thought to myself, like, how can we treat people that, they don't get up until this point? So from there, I decided to get my personal trainer's license, and I took that approach of prehab. So basically helping them function in real life. So then that way they don't have to get to the injury point. I pulled my back a few times, and that's why I don't want people to feel pain.
Yep.
So from there, I basically started training at a fitness center, another boot camp, and basically my training was more like the rehab. So anytime that people had injuries, like I was the go-to person. Getting to know somebody and understanding that everything stems from the core, and that's where your strongest part is, and that's where a lot of people are weak in a certain sense. So it's about building a certain foundation and then kind of building it from there. And that's kind of where I started. Where I'm at right now is pretty much, I always knew that I wanted to start my own thing.
Yep.
And a lot of times we have fear that get in the way. And for me, it was just, I knew that there was something more.
Yep.
And I knew that the stuff we're doing right now, like it's not even out there right now. Like it's hard to come to a class where you're not used to doing like super hard cardio and there's mobility in it. But like I told you before, it's about helping people understand their body, understand why we do certain exercises. And then from there is like they understand and building a culture where we can actually do these classes and they enjoy it.
100%. And I think that's so important too, as we were discussing a bit off camera, but because I think the rehab portion is something that's not always involved when you show up to a class, I think that's what makes yours so special. And you also really understand who's in the class. So it's not like everyone's showing up, you're like, hey, this is the game plan. Doesn't matter. You pay attention to who's there, who's not, what they need specifically. And then even tracking back to you saying, having to understand your body and like what is needed. A lot of trainers I find don't take the time to do that. And like I've trained with a lot of different trainers, and the moment you get in a group setting, you feel like you lose that one-on-one. And I feel like you do a good job at keeping that, which makes it like super, super, I think, enticing for people to show up, right?
Of course.
Like I know for me, I was always a one-on-one person all the time, just because I felt like I liked that personable experience. You know me, I know you, like if I hurt my ankle, okay, what is it? But sometimes I feel like if I go in a class, well, this guy might not know I hurt my ankle, and now I got to do this drill, right? So I think that's like amazing that you took that approach. And I think like every entrepreneur, you kind of found a gap in the system, and like that's where you stepped in and was like, I'm going to fill that gap, and like kind of brought you to this point, right? So now like let's touch a bit on the entrepreneur side, because you're obviously in the gym space, and there's obviously a lot of gyms out there. So what were a lot of the driving factors that you think not only differentiated you, but helped get you through like those tough moments of overcoming any obstacle to get you to this point?
The biggest thing is knowing your why. And I tell my clients, having a vision, a compelling vision, and knowing your why. Because regardless of what's happening out there, if you have a strong enough why, the how is easy. And for me, I can go back, this is probably a year and a half ago. This was December-ish, January in the new year. I looked back on my life and thought, okay, I've been at this place for like almost 8 years. It's going to be almost 10 years. Like if I don't do anything, I know I'm going to be at the same place next year. And I don't want to keep saying I'm going to do this, but I made a decision that no matter what, I'm not going to be here at the same time, at the same place.
Yep.
And from there, my driving factor is my kids.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter and my son, where there's even some things that play in my mind, and it gets me emotional, because for me, being an entrepreneur is like, it's like being a kid where you have those dreams and there's nothing holding you back.
Yep.
And for me, it's like, I can't sit there and look at my daughter and my son and say, you know what, go for your dreams, but daddy didn't go for his.
Yep.
And that's what drives me, is because I'm trying to show my children they can do anything they want and truly do anything they want, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your background, as long as you have that strong enough why and that purpose, and you know that, you know, you don't know the exact layout, but you have that passion to help people, or a passion to do whatever you want to do, but just go do it regardless of what anybody tells you. And that's my, that's my why, that's my anchor.
Yeah. Right? And I think obviously that's amazing, right? It's big. I actually just bought a book that literally says understanding your why, because it's so important. It's scary because you ask a lot of people why they're doing something, and it's usually like, oh, it's for the money, or it's for this, for that. And it's like, but that's not a good enough reason, because if the money doesn't come, well, you're going to back out. So I think having a deeply rooted why, like your kids, is huge, right? Because now you're leading that way for them. And even if they see you struggle at some point, they'll be like, but dad got through that. Like I can get through that at that point. And now you have also like the wisdom and experience to bring it back to them. So I think that's definitely amazing. What would you say, like, I know from my side, I'm also like big, like religiously, spiritually, like praying, seeking guidance from like a higher source of whatever that may mean to somebody. Would you say that played a big role as well into bringing you where you are? Yeah,
I always tell people God first, because I'm a big person on faith. And for me, like, it wouldn't be this if I didn't follow like God's plan, or like God's like whisper to say, just go do it, regardless of what people are doing out there. It's just like, I had to have faith, because even when I started this, I was at a position where, the rent, and then renting a house right now, where there's a lot on my plate. So for me, like, the number, I was so used to making maybe $24,000 a year. And now I'm going up to like the rent and everything, almost like 8 to 10 grand a month. So it's like, okay, like, I gotta have faith, but you gotta like step it up and do it. And like, God, bring me the right people. But they always say, like, you have to do the work too.
100%.
You can't just pray and expect things to fall into your lap. 100%. You gotta like push yourself into it. You gotta, put in the work, put in the things where it's like, now I'm seeing things start to grow. But it's like you're planting the seeds when you first start off, and not everything's going to grow at once. But it's having that faith to keep going in those times where it doesn't look like anything's moving.
100%. Right? Of course, entrepreneurship, I always say it's like a battle. It's uphill and downhill, right? And even like, they say ask and you shall receive. So it's like you pray, and that's great. That's the first part. But like you said, it's putting in the work. And I think a lot of people lack that. And then they turn to, but I prayed and like nothing happened. And it's like, well, that's nice. I can give you a pencil. It's not going to write itself.
Exactly.
Like, you have to put in the work, especially when you have your own business. And being the owner, like the biggest thing that will differentiate you is you. Like people will show, I can get this equipment and go somewhere else, but why am I here? It's for Sam. Because of what he instills, his morals, his values. And it's so important that everyone that comes through the door kind of follows and believes in the same things you do, because it just, I think, helps that connection, especially when you're working with people in a tight-knit space. But touching back on God, like, I agree, I'm the same. I think if anybody, even if you're like, if it's not God, if it's something else of a higher power, like, definitely reach out and trust that there is another source and that you can't do everything yourself.
Of course.
And I would say, like, obviously you have a family. Would you say those you surround yourself with are really another big driving factor to keep you going? Like, whether it be like your kids or your partner or whoever it is, to really give you that strength in those times of like, I don't know if I can do this, like rent's catching up, like, but I gotta keep it going.
And for me, like, one of my goals is especially for my kids, is to have freedom of time. And that's why I'm doing this. Like, this is only the start of the process, but I want to be in control of my time.
Of course.
And that's why, like, I think most entrepreneurs do this kind of life because, like, you enjoy doing it. You do a lot more work.
Yeah.
But it's like, I have the freedom. If, you know what, if I want to go out one day with my family, like, I have the freedom to do that.
Yep.
And that's my driving force as well. And they've been strong for me because there's some days, and let's be honest, there's some days I don't want to wake up and do work.
Of course.
Like, I got to wake up at 4 o'clock, right? It's like, it's tough, but you know what I mean? But I get up because I know that there's, like, you know, people relying on me for this.
Yep.
Even the people at the gym, where it's like, some days I walk in, I'm like, man, like, people are coming because, you know what I mean? The teaching that I do, it's like, sometimes it's humbling, like, because I'm always like writing programs, this and that, and sometimes that gets in the way, but then I realized, like, why am I here? I'm here for them. I'm here for my kids. I'm here for my wife, like that kind of stuff.
No, 100%. And it's like, they're coming because they believe in you in that moment, right? So you get here and you're like you said, why are they here? For me. Okay, I'm here then. I'm good. I'm ready to go. Like, let's make it the best. We're human. Everybody has that, like, oh, okay, I don't want to get up today. Like, but you go, right? And it's like, you know, sometimes working for someone, it's like you have those thoughts, but at the same time, you're like, I got to show my boss is going to kick my ass. But when you work for yourself, you have that a second of like, okay, if I didn't, and then you're like, hey, no, obviously I got to go. But discipline is huge. And I tell everybody, you want to become an entrepreneur, you have to have discipline. If you do not, because you have that leisure of being able to take that day off or doing what you please at a certain time, like, you will fall through the cracks. So that ties into understanding your why. Why are you here? That will keep you disciplined. And in a space like yours where there's people actually coming in, like, they're showing up, so you got to show up even better than them.
Of course.
They're coming for you, right?
Of course.
So, yeah, no, I think that's definitely great. What would you say, so from this point, like, you have an amazing space. I think it's so cool. So what would you say, like, your plan is from here? Like, what's that goal for you? My plan from here, it's always been, it's not just about fitness. It's more about healing. So a lot of the stuff we do here is mindset as well. We do, like, sound bowl healing, we do meditations, because I didn't want people to feel like it was just one dimensional. Of course. And sometimes things happen where it's, you know, it's more like emotional things that are like stuck and they need to come out. So for me, I want people to heal from the inside out. And that's why we have a very, like, wide network, but very niche to who we want to support. And I think for me, it's more of that kind of stuff, the spiritual side of things, but plus the recovery too. Like, I'm looking into, like, infrared therapy, what's it called? Cold therapy. I was gonna say cold tubs. That kind of stuff, right? Because I don't know, I find like recovery is huge, and a lot of times even in fitness where people are constantly like working out, their muscles are tight. You need something to kind of relieve that. And also, what I started is a journey of I've taken my certification for steel mace flow. Oh, cool. So it's mostly like, it's kind of like yoga meets like badass like work. Like it's just, it's cool. Like, and I want some people to like connect on an emotional thing, because sometimes fitness is like that. 100%. Even when they're hitting the bags and I see people struggling, I'm like, let it out. Like cry. Like I see people crying on the bags because it's a release. They got to get stuff out. 100%. And that's what I want people. I don't want people to say that, you know what I mean? I'm afraid to cry. Let it out. Because if you trap it in, it's got to come out a certain way. So I want people to release and feel comfortable in this space where there's no judgment and people are elevating them, and you know, you take your insecurities, but here it's just like everyone's one, everyone's equal. That's why even me, the way I build like my t-shirts and stuff, I don't have one that says coach. I can have one, you know what I mean? There's people out there, right? But I always felt like I'm equal. You know what I mean? God's eyes, we're the same, brothers 100%, and sisters. 100%. That's it. So that's why I've never been like one to have a different type of t-shirt or like that classification or that differentiation. It's like, we're in this together. Right? 100%. And I think that's why a lot of people come back, right? And I think even just to touch on you saying like the sound bowls and the meditation, I know for me, when I started doing those things and healing from the inside, it shifts your whole perspective on life and how you move. And especially with something like coming to the gym, a lot of people may not even show up because it's an internal trauma or internal like they're self-conscious about something. Or when they get here, it's like, well, she's lifting heavier than me. And it's like, why can't I do that? So you encouraging the emotional side of it, I think is huge. And a lot of people don't do that. that. It's just like, come to the gym, let's hit the bag.
Yeah.
But it's true, like, even with crying, I tell people all the time, just let it out. It's not what you think it is. Like, people don't want to be weak or show others I'm crying, but trust me, you have trauma, so does this guy. But he's just not showing it.
Of course.
So I think healing from the inside makes a big difference, because they say as within, so without. So I think that's like huge, and I think that would be a big competitive advantage for you as well.
Even a quick story, like, even when there was this one thing where I didn't know why people didn't come to the gym and start a program.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I'm like, I thought just because myself, it's easy.
Yeah.
And then one girl came in and it's like, she wasn't coming in like regularly. And I'm like, why don't you want to come in? Because she had a fear of failing. And like, I've never seen it that way, but if you think about it, like, I believe the stats are like, I believe it's in females or everybody, it could be that 8 out of 10 people, or they try 8 diets and they fail on 8 diets. So it's like, I never saw it in that way, but people are afraid to even try again because they have in the back of their mind, they're going to fail again. And that's hard.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
And so, a lot of people almost feel ashamed to even admit that. But it's like, you'd be shocked, majority of the people do feel that. Yeah. And I think even you mentioned diet quickly, you were telling me off camera too, like the whole weight loss thing. Yeah. And like the whole driving factor on that. If you want to explain that, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, and my perspective on that is like, we always focus on weight loss, and we focus on what we're losing and restricting diets, taking away. And I do follow a few people, but it comes to the point where like, even some of the foods, like, our cultures are based out of it. Yeah. And I think every culture has that so-called poor man's food, where it's like rice or pastas. Yeah. But if you take it out of your diet and thinking that it's bad, it's something that you've grown accustomed to, like genetically you've built upon it, like, you know, generation after generation. So by taking it out, you're taking certain minerals or stuff that you need. Yeah. So for me, it's like adding, what can you add to this? Or I always tell people, rather than focusing on losing weight, we're going to build muscle. Yep. And by building lean muscle, you're going to boost your metabolism, and that's when you're going to burn body fat.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's a perspective change, where it's like, always you hear somebody, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, how do I focus on losing right here? And you know what, I'm this and that. Everything starts from judgment. Yep. Where it's like, we should be empowering people to like, okay, I get to eat more, or I get to eat more meals, because people think they're eating healthy too, but they're not eating enough. Right. And I tell people, I'm like, you want to, you know, so-called lose weight or build muscle, you got to eat more, because you're not eating enough for the amount of work that you're doing. Yeah. But people have that skewed idea, well, okay, more cardio and this, and I'm like, I tell people, there's a certain like tipping point where if you do too much, it's working against you. Yeah. And that's where I think where, you know what I mean, as a whole culture, we need to change that.
I agree.
And that's what I want to focus on is, you know, we're building muscle, because you're going to need muscle as we age, because most of my clients range between 30 and say like 60. Yeah. So that's when you need to build muscle, so you can, you know, hold your kids, or you can hang out with your grandkids and not feel like out of shape. Yeah. So I think that's where we need to focus on, is building the muscle so you can actually function and have a better life, quality of life too.
Yeah, I agree. Because touching, like, a lot of people think, oh, I'll eat less, lose weight. But it's like, if you have no muscle and you're 50 and 60, and it's like, how are you going to even function? I can't play with the kids, or don't leave them here for a long time. It's like, you don't want that. Yeah. Do you find that social media makes it a little bit harder as a trainer to like keep and instill those values, because there's obviously perceptions that get built online of like, do this, do that, do this, and then people come to you, but Sam, like, this girl said this, and it's like, wait, what? Like, I went to school, I'm telling you. So do you find that that's been like getting worse, I guess? Yeah,
and it's like, you know what it is? It's because things are so ingrained in us, where we think that, okay, if we lift weights, what do you always hear? Oh, I don't want to bulk up. Yeah. I probably hear that every time. That, or, you know what, if I eat more, am I going to gain weight? So a lot of this stuff is already ingrained, so that you're just, basically your body's just running that same pattern, that same behavioral pattern. And again, like, even with, say, like TikTok and like Instagram, social media, like I told one lady last week, I'm like, you got to stop, like, you got to take things with a grain of salt, right? Like, there's not one exercise that's going to work on belly fat, right? If I do this, if I do that, I'm like, I told her, I'm like, listen, stick to the basics. The key to this is doing something more than a month.
Yeah.
Because usually what happens is people try things for 30 days and you hear it, 30-day fat loss,
always.
30-day this.
Number.
So the number's 30 days. So what happens is when you don't see results in 30 days, they try something different.
Right.
By trying something different, you're not giving your body time to adapt to it and to actually grow from it.
Yeah.
And then you go into something else. Then you try this diet, then you try this specific diet.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're doing more damage to your body than just taking it one day at a time and this culture of like everything happens overnight. Hard work. Anything that's good for you, if you think about in your life and any life, took hard work, took time to build. You know what I mean? You didn't do this podcast, you know what I mean, overnight. It took time. It took planning, right? And the same thing with your body. It's like, it takes time to build. It's not gonna happen overnight. Unfortunately, there's some people or whatever tactics they use, they get people in vulnerable moments where, okay, it's about the weight loss, 30 days in weight loss, but then track them after that 30 days. And for me, even a big thing for me is helping them build those behaviors and understanding why you're eating chips at night or why you're eating those certain things. It could be trauma. And it could be a protective mechanism. Even some people, I heard that they're heavier, they gain weight because I think it was somebody that they wanted to protect themselves from being abused.
Wow.
So they built this wall, which is like a physical wall around them. So they're less desirable, so they don't get abused anymore. So it's like, you got to understand those type of things, that there's a root to it. And I want to get to the root of things rather than always treating everybody on the surface level. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's important, right? And that goes back to your inner healing, with the meditation, the sound bowls, because all those things do heal you internally and will even help the person understand where. Because sometimes people just don't know because they're not even asked. Like, you ever thought about why you're eating that bag of chips? So I think that's huge, you know, having that mindset and really pushing people to understand that about themselves. So what would you say, you know, to kind of like end it off and get everyone to understand, like, why should they come see you? You know, like, what's your, like, I'm going to do this and you should come see me.
I say why. You always start with you, and a biggest thing like that ties everything in is self-awareness. Understanding, like, with everything where it's like, it's all on you. It's your responsibility. You can't blame, and like we were talking about before, where people, they don't show up for even workouts. And I find like it's society playing this, like, I call it like a soft society. Because now it's like, okay, well, the weather isn't great, so I'm not gonna go work out.
I don't want to get up.
But I'm like, guys, like, if I told you half the stuff that I gotta do, like, I don't do this to brag, but I'm telling you, like, there's commitments and disciplines that you got to do in order to get the results you want. So you got to show up. And you got to do the daily work.
100%.
So I tell people, I'm like, you got to have this mindset or make a decision to, like, change your life, but realize that people think that the first 30 days they get great results. And then, okay, this is easy. It gets harder.
For sure.
Even with our business, even like growing, it gets harder. You get to a certain 100%. Level and it's like, shit, I feel like I'm at the bottom again. Right? But that makes us alive. But it's just like, people think that it's gonna be easy all the time. It's not. Because, you know what I mean? Your old self is gonna creep in if you don't take care of those behavioral patterns, if you don't take care of the things you need to take care of in order to move forward. You know what I mean? You can't avoid everything all the time. You gotta face it head on.
No,
right?
100%. And like you said, even, you know, it's raining, I don't want to get up. It's probably because they don't even understand why they're coming. They know the generics, but it's like, they're not here because, or they don't want it enough. To me, it's always like, when you know your why, you got to want it though. 100%. If you're not getting up, like, I'm doing this. Like, I want to drop 60 pounds. I'm doing what I got to do. And there's people that do it and you see them and I'm like, yo, good for you. Like, they're outside running in the rain. I'm like, that's respect, you know? So yeah, I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing what you do here. Obviously, thank you for coming on the pod and like sharing your story and your experience. I'll definitely have you on again. I like, you know, having guests on again, seeing where they're at a few months down the line. But I'll link Sam's socials in the YouTube in the bio, and then on the Instagram, you guys will see it as well. Subscribe if you like it. Reach out to Sam if you have any questions with regards to like fitness, you know, even personal healing. He's here to help. And yeah, subscribe, like, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.